Your next session is API data standards and interoperability, and it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator, Dr. Ralf Belusa, Managing Director, Digital Business and Transformation at Hapag-Lloyd. Dr. Ralf Belusa has led business transformations, mentored, co-founded, and exited various startups. He was included in the top 50 most respected managers in Germany and top 100 digital influencers in Europe by Woche magazine and Mercedes-Benz Corporation. Ralf originally trained as a scientist and has since completed further studies in micro and nanotechnology and astrophysics with a doctorate in cell research. He began software programming at the age of 6 and started his first technology company at 16. He currently leads Hapag-Lloyd's digital business and transformation in 144 countries and serves as a supervisory board member of a global Fortune 500 health company. The experts speakers joining Dr. Ralf Belusa are Broady, Senior Solution Architect, Digital Container Shipping Association, Edmund, Chief Technology Officer, Global Shipping Business Network, and Gavin, Chairman, Technical Committee of DigitalOCEANS from MPA. I will pass the floor over to Dr. Ralf Belusa. Please join me in welcoming the speakers. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this kind introduction. So warm welcome also from my side, and great that you join our session for today. So in the next 60 minutes, our topic of the session is, as mentioned, API, data standards, and interoperability. And yeah, today we are talking about really hands-on use cases, presentations, and how data standards and the interoperability can be developed and how developers can use them. And therefore, as mentioned, we have great panelists with me today, great presenters from the DigitalOcean, as mentioned, from the DCSA and from Gsbn. So wonderful examples for today. And I'm really looking forward to a great session and an exchange about how data and API standards, how we can work with that and put that into the future for all the goods. With that, I would like to hand over to Gavin for the first presentation, and looking forward to DigitalOCEANS and what we can learn from that. What are the hands-on use cases on the data standards and interoperability?
Thank you, Dr. Ralf. Yeah. Good day, everyone. My name is Gavin. I currently head the sectoral systems development of MPA, overseeing a team of managers developing solutions for MPA, as well as developing solutions to support the operations of MPA. I'm also the chairman for the DigitalOCEANS Technical Committee, driving the development of the API standards for the DigitalOCEANS use cases. Yeah. So I shall now begin my presentation. MPA began our journey back in 2014 when we started a series of smart hackathons and challenges, gathering the local developers community to come together to exchange data and develop innovative solutions and ideas for our maritime stakeholders. The experience that we gained from these events led us to realize the importance of data sharing and motivated us to develop and launch the Singapore Maritime Data Hub in 2019. That is to create an enabling environment for maritime innovation, co-development, and test bidding of innovative solutions. In addition, we also see that there is a growing need to harmonize and standardize data across the various systems being developed globally, and therefore we established the DigitalOCEANS MOU in July 2020 with 6 international partners, as shown on the slides here, to collaborate and develop API standards that seek to facilitate system interoperability, to form data bridges, and connect digitally between systems seamlessly in the global maritime supply chain. So why is there a need for harmonization and standardization? Let's take a look at a typical use case. Whenever a ship travels from one port to another, there are a great amount of regulatory documents that need to be submitted to the port in order for her to enter the port. While many ports would have their own systems or single windows, more often than not, they were implemented based on their own requirements and therefore exist in different technical standards and format. This means that every time a ship goes to one port to another, the port shipmaster or the agent will have to prepare and submit similar regulatory information or documents to the other port. And this could be very cumbersome and time-consuming for them. While there could be bilateral agreements between the different ports to exchange data, the numbers are usually very small. And because of that, there's no overall visibility in the entire port call value chain. Our solution to this challenge is the recently launched Parklands Api Specifications, which was jointly developed with our DigitalOCEANS partners that aims to standardize the technical implementations for port clearance related data between data consumers and producers, streamline the implementation efforts for port authorities and industry, and also to enable interoperability between systems. The API specifications is meant to be generic and applicable to anyone, whether you are a technology provider for shipboard systems, marine tech companies, digital platform providers, port authorities, and etc. A typical use case on how to implement the API is shown here. I'll not go into the specifics, but for more details on the API specifications, you can visit our DigitalOCEANS website as shown here. Our goal in developing the API specification is to push for the adoption of common technical API standards for port clearance. As we can see that there is currently lacking in the global maritime space. And in doing so, we could help to foster interoperability between ship to system, systems to systems for a more efficient port call process. So as a maritime developer, digital platform provider, or as a port, you may ask what is in store for me and why would I want to do this? My answer to you is simply by implementing this set of API standards within your product or solution, you could increase the value proposition for your users and customers, be it commercially driven or not. To use your systems, that it will help your stakeholders to improve the port clearance efficiency, enable port call optimization and reduce port stay, thus saving costs and contributing to sustainability. And last but not least, reducing the administrative burden on the shipmasters, agents, and port call stakeholders by eliminating repeated document submissions. So let us get started. In the meantime, I also like to take this opportunity to invite the community to start connecting with us and come on board our Singapore Maritime Data Hub, as we have tons of data for sharing, as can see from this site. With that, I've come to the end of my presentation, so I hope that we can all connect. My contact details are as shown on the slide, so let's connect and start interoperating between each of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Great presentation and good insights here from your sides to show us the Singapore Maritime Hub and also how you do the port clearance API. So good example how we can connect here and make APIs more accessible, increase value for customers, for ports. So wonderful, and thanks for sharing. With that, I would like to hand over to Alan from the DCSA and looking forward to your presentation and give us some insights on your daily work here.
Very much, Ralf, and good day to all of the participants today. I'm Alan Broady. I'm the Senior Solution Architect at DCSA. That's the Digital Container Shipping Association. We're a non-profit organization setting technical standards in the container shipping industry, and our members are 9 of the largest ocean carriers. Today, I would like to talk to you about a particular use case, which is about port call optimization, and in particular, just-in-time port call optimization. This is an initiative that the DCSA has been working on since we started, and what we hope to achieve with this is to increase the efficiency of port calls. By doing this, we will reduce the carbon footprint for the container shipping industry. There are really three, I think, key goals to that. One of the most obvious is the ability for ocean carriers to optimize their steaming speed, which evidently will lead to optimal use of bunker fuel. The second one, which is a bit less obvious, is the increase in multimodal operational efficiency. So by optimizing port calls, we can ensure also that the handover from containers to the next mode of transport, be it a feeder line, be it inland waterways, be it road, be it rail, the next link in the chain also needs to know what's happening with the port call so that they can optimize their operations. And the third point really is for all parties, by increasing the amount of data that's available, by digitizing the procedures around port calls, we can all increase the amount of transparency, the amount of data that's there. By performing analytics over this data, we can gain insights into those procedures. So there are many ways in which port call optimization and our just-in-time port call standards can help to increase operational efficiency of port calls. And we're designing our standards around open REST APIs. That's really a core concept within the work that DCSA is doing. Now, the way that we do those APIs is we actually start from the business processes. We think you can't just look at the information being exchanged, or perhaps look at how previous standards worked, or look at how previous ways of working were. We think you've got to start right at the beginning. So when DCSA starts on a standard, we actually start by analyzing the business process itself. And at the end of that process, we publish a document that we call the industry blueprint. This document describes the end-to-end processing for container shipping, all of the business processes that are there. And it does that in terms of different kinds of journeys, in terms of the vessel journey, in terms of the actual equipment journey, and of course in terms of the shipment itself. Based on these journeys, we can then derive an information model, which basically describes all of the objects and attributes that are needed to exchange information in those business processes. And based on that, we are then able to define the information that's transferred, which we call our interface standard, which is an abstract representation of the information that needs to be exchanged. And from that, it's then possible to generate real REST APIs. And we publish those REST APIs actually directly onto Swagger Hub, which is the, let's say, central place on the internet for finding all kinds of standardized APIs, and also APIs from all kinds of organizations that are available. Great way to find out about APIs and also get examples of APIs. It's also got test tools. So it's a great way to experiment with APIs in general. And that's part of, let's say, the general open access philosophy of DCSA. We're trying to make all of our standards openly available to the industry in a way that is not proprietary, that can be implemented by all. And we feel that this, let's say, low barrier of entry is a critical aspect that will lead to a higher rate of adoption of these standards. But how do we actually develop those standards? Because of course, all standards and all software really needs to be based on the real world. So the way that we are developing these standards for port call optimization is by working together with ports and terminals and ocean carriers and others in the industry in order to make sure that we have correctly captured the business processes, and that the APIs that we design together with the ocean carriers and the subject matter experts are, let's say, correctly capture the information that needs to be exchanged. So we've been doing that through a series of pilot processes, some of which are described in these two documents that have been seen in the, let's say, in the press. So one there describing the various different ports where we've been performing these pilot processes. So that's been at the Port of Singapore, of course, at Valencia, at Rotterdam, and at Hamburg, and we expect to expand that during the course of this year. And it's by capturing this real world experience by finding out how port calls work in practice, that we're able to come to, let's say, appropriate technical standards. Now, the thing about just-in-time port call and event-driven APIs in general, let's say, is that they of course are something that is based on needing to capture and respond to a stream of actual real-world events. And we believe that the best way to do that is by having a kind of publish-subscribe model, which is something that is seen in many APIs, as usually performed using a technique that's often referred to as callbacks or webhooks or notifications. Different terms are used for this. We have also implemented this within our API standards. So how that actually works in practice is that if, for example, you are in the role of a port authority and you, as an organization, are interested to find out about, for example, the estimated time of arrival of a vessel, and in particular, not just the general estimated time of arrival, but the estimated time of arrival at a very specific place, for example, the pilot boarding place, then you can request to receive a stream of events from the ocean carrier that will tell you what those estimated times of arrival are and will be continuously updated as new information emerges. This process, let's say, allows the port authority to optimize their operations and ensure that they are ready for the vessel when it arrives. Similarly, if you're a terminal, you want to let the ocean carrier know when you're going to be ready to start cargo operations. So the ocean carrier can subscribe to you to receive that information, and you can send a stream of information back to the ocean carrier. So this process of using callbacks or webhooks, that's a great way to allow this event-driven or publish-subscribe model to work in APIs. And as part of our standard, we've defined 50 use cases of all of these different kinds of timestamps that can be exchanged, and we're continuing to increase that as we go forward with the various real-world experiments. So this really is an example of how open APIs can help to drive the container shipping industry forward. And we'd like to invite all the participants in this conference and the wider community to take part in this process with us. If you visit our website at dcsa.org, you'll find a wide range of information there available about this standard and our other standards. You can download the standards, you can learn about them. You can use our reference implementation, which is open source software that we are providing on GitHub, which will show how the APIs can be implemented. And we would like to invite all who are interested to take part in our upcoming multimodal hackathon. It's actually being organized by our sister organization, IATA, in the air cargo. But it's, as I mentioned, it's a multimodal hackathon. So it's really covering all possible modes of transport in the logistics sector. And we think this kind of event and using these kind of standards can be a great way to show how APIs can be used in this industry. So that's really wrapping it up about port call optimization and our API standards for that. Hope that this was interesting to you all, and I'll hand back to Ralf.
Thank you very much, Alan. Wonderful. Thanks for this good presentation and also giving some insights on the DCSA, on the port call optimization, just-in-time methods, the push notifications, and also looking out for the hackathon. So great things coming up here on that side. What I would just like to mention to the audience, listen to our great session here, just think about the pigeonhole. If you have some questions, some remarks, and would like to interact with us, so just use the pigeonhole QR code, send us your questions, your comments, your feedbacks, and then you are right into that. You see that directly with enter your passcode, and then you are rightful connected with us here in this session. So thank you very much. So with that, I would like to hand over to Edmund from the Gsbn with his presentation, and I'm really looking forward now to his view on the API and interoperability.
Thank you, Dr. Ralf. Hi, everyone. This is Edmund, Chief Technology Officer of Global Shipping Business Network, Gsbn. And before I get started, I just want to take this chance to thank the organizer, Singapore Maritime Week, for such an invitation to speak to many of you. At Gsbn, we are a not-for-profit blockchain consortiums that found by some of the largest shipping line and terminal operators. And before I start, before I joined Gsbn, I work at a blockchain engineering company called Consensus, and we involved in building quite a number of blockchain consortiums in the space of trade finance, commodity settlement, or payment network. So I'm quite excited to see emerging technologies such as blockchain to see what it can bring to the shipping industry. And in upcoming for the presentation, I will break it down into 3 parts. So the first part, I'll share a little bit about what is the founding story of Gsbn, who are our shareholders, what is our philosophy when we found these not-for-profit consortiums. Next, we will have a technical introductions of a little bit on the design principle of our APIs and the blockchain network. I don't think we'll go into all the details given the time that we have, but hopefully they can give a little bit of the background of on the platform technically. And last, with this sort of data, we'll cover 2 use cases. One around supply chain workflow on the cargo release process, and the other one connecting to the areas of trade finance. These 2 are just a start, but hopefully share with these 2 examples. We look forward to engaging with many of the participants in the community to build more use cases in the future. So with that, let's get started. So these are the founding members of Gsbn. As you can see on the right-hand side, we have the 8 logos here. I believe many of them will look familiar with, to you. So we are very honored to have the port in Singapore, PSA, being our shareholders, as well as the German largest shipping line, Hapag-Lloyd, being one of our shareholders. In Hong Kong, we have OOCL, which is a Hong Kong homegrown shipping line, Hutchison Ports, a global terminal operators. And in China, we have Hutchison, we have COSCO Shipping, COSCO Port, the port in Shanghai, SIPG, as well as the port in Qingdao Port. So if we look into all these 8 companies that accounts for over 1/3 of containers volume. So it's quite interesting to see if we have this sort of representations from our shareholders and their support. If we use blockchain technology, which is more of emerging technologies, what sort of use cases we can build on top. So Gsbn was founded in March last year, having received all the approval that is needed. But if you look into some of the milestones that we had, it is a project that has been around for more than 4 years. So even we came to this point, it is actually we have done a different kind of work, and later we will share a little bit with you more on some of them. So these are some of the key principles when Gsbn is formed. So the slogan of Gsbn is here to simplify trade for all. If we are going to describe Gsbn as a platform, we are a trade data utility platform. Gsbn is actually a not-for-profit organization. I want to share a little bit about the rationale behind this. From the shareholders, when they start this project Gsbn, given that it has been around for quite some years, we believe data is very important element to drive digital transformation to the industry. And it is so important, just like other utility, just like water, just like electricity, where in many places in the world, for the organizations that are providing water and electricity, they're not here to maximize the profit, but actually to provide certain benefits to the society. And with these missions, this is why Gsbn is set up as a not-for-profit entity. And we are also an independent entity. When we set up here, we are based in Hong Kong. We actually have employees that are coming from all different organizations in the industry. Myself came from more of a technology background. Our CEO came from Hutchison Port, so from terminal operators. We also have colleagues coming from one from Flexport, so from a digital forwarder, from banks. So here we have a very diversified background because we believe with that we can support the growth of the projects. And in the middle, it describes some of the technical primitives of the Gsbn platform. So we are powered by blockchain technology. Particularly, we are built on top of trusted and permission blockchain called Hyperledger Fabric. Later we can talk a little bit more. The second aspect, which I believe is quite important. In short, Gsbn does not have access of your data. So even myself as a CTO of the platform, I will not be able to see your data. And this is why we believe it is technically so important that for us to build a platform that we have stakeholders in the shipping industry or terminal operators. For lack of bad words, some could be competitor to each other. But by having some of these strong technical primitives, they can trust the platform. We also have choices from manual technology provider. Now, what it means is, we are independent, we are not for profit, so we are not particularly associated with any technology vendor. And in short, currently we are building across of multiple cloud providers, including Microsoft Azure, Oracle, as well as Alibaba in China. Now, we can talk, for hours on technology, but I think it's very important to see, with this sort of technologies, what are some of the solutions that we can enable for the sector, and then later we will share more. So with that, these are some of the high-level key summaries of the design of application programming interfaces, in short, APIs for Gsbn. So Gsbn is a data exchange platform powered by blockchain technologies. And if we are going to highlight some of these key features of the platform, I will highlight these 5 key areas. So first, it is powered by blockchain technology. We are building on top of enterprise-grade and permission blockchain technology, Hyperledger Fabric. So that is the first enterprise technology that reached 1.0 under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation. Currently, as of now, we are only writing hashes of the transactions on the blockchain network, allowing verifications of transactions authenticity. So given we have this enterprise blockchain network, and we have different commercial parties here. We are not writing the exact commercial informations, but writing sort of a hashes of reference, allowing parties to verify that these transactions are being written on the platform and leveraging immutability of blockchain technology. Second, we believe this is a very interesting design of the platform as well. Currently, we actually break it down into 2 sets of deployments. So we have the China deployments as well as the international deployments. Now, so this technology design is we believe that can meet the data localization requirement. In short, allowing data not to leave the territories unless this is absolutely necessary. And we believe that for us to design the global blockchain network from day one and having to meet with many of these requirements, whether it's GDPR or China cybersecurity law, etc. We want to get this particular design right from day one. The third, as we mentioned, data is actually encrypted before submitting to the Gsbn platform, and we actually share with related parties on a need-to-know basis, particularly leveraging the features called role lists. So in short, we won't even be able to see the data that is being there. And based on that, we have different use cases that could be developed on top. So we have our first product is on a blockchain-based cargo release process. And we also have over 30 plus different business API and schema such as CAB, container events, delivery orders, original bill of lading, etc. And lastly, when we design those API standards, we actually have taken considerations of some of these existing standards in mind. So that's including ISO, DCSA, the UN standard, as well as the Ministry of Transport standard. So, thanks for DCSA to putting some of these, standards in the market. So, with all the background of Gsbn as the foundations, as well as some of this technical design, the first use case that we launched is the use case on the release process of a cargo. So this is our first launch, and in here in the screen we are seeing some of these press release that we had last year when we launched the platform. And currently we have over 10 locations going in production, and we see a process that could take in the past a couple of days, and we shorten it and we digitalize it using blockchain technology into a couple of hours. So to give a little bit more on the details, what we have seen here is the before and after of a cargo release process. And before Gsbn and digitalizing it, we can see that here is steps, a series of steps involving carrier, ship agents, consignees, truckers, as well as terminals. And many of the steps are actually involving paper exchange. When we see a scenario where that involves multiple parties, that involves multiple parties agreeing on a single source of truth, in this single source of truth particular is on the status of a container, that is a perfect use case of technology such as blockchain. So with this parties agreeing single source of truth, we can see that we can bring it to be time saving. We can bring real time visibility. It can be contactless and paperless, which is very important in situation like COVID right now. So what we see is by digitalizing this sort of steps, and by digitalizing using blockchain technology, we are able to achieve what a process on the right, which is also a sequence of steps for them to communicate. But many of them that take place of a digital form instead of a paper form, and we see a process that could take a good couple of days to shorten it into a few hours in many locations that we see. So. Other than the first use case, the second use case that we see is in connecting the supply chain industry to the trade finance industry. Cargo release, what we see is we are enhancing a workflow in the supply chain. But very often in a parallel industry, there's a set of workflow and many of these physical trade involving financial institutions to actually funding some of these transactions. So some of these, typical financial instrument that you may heard of will be such as letter of credit or open account financings. In the past, these two industry, they are not very connected. But what we see is we have a blockchain network where some of these, exciting primitives being, get the electronic single source of truth of the data from the original source, such as shipping line and terminals. This shipping data is very valuable information for the trade finance industry. And that's why we have formulated a trade finance advisory group with a few of the leading banks in the region, HSBC, Bank of China, and DBS in Singapore, in looking together when we have the shipping data, how is that going to benefit the trade finance industry. So that is the second type of use case that we are working on. So today we share a bit of what we have done in Gsbn and some of the two use cases. Going forward, we look to open up more of our API and also our data. So if you are interested in getting involved, this is the email. Drop us a line. We'll love to talk to you. So that's it on my part. Back to you, Dr. Ralf.
Thank you so much, Edmund. So great presentation again, also from Gsbn. So great to see also the example from your cargo release and also the trade finance, and also some insights, what you meant on the slide with data encryption, the values for our customers, for the ports, for the markets here also on that side. So thank you very much to all of you. And now we are coming to our Q&A and to our exchange to talk to each one and see what's right now on the pigeonhole. So let's go for the first one. If you can click on this to make this a bit larger so that everyone can read that. So the first one is, given the benefits of a standard format for port call, what are the challenges to implement this globally? So let's start with Alan. What do you think on this? What are the challenges to implement this globally?
Thanks, Ralf. I think that's a really excellent question. So I think that there are a number of challenges there. In a way, any API or standard can face kind of chicken and egg problems. Let's say you can have a great technical solution, but how are you actually going to make sure that the industry actually adopts that standard? Now, a big part of the way that we believe we can approach that, or we actually are approaching that, is actually to be in direct contact with many of the largest container shipping ports, and to work with them in terms of allowing them to implement the various APIs. I mean, in our particular case, of course, we are inherently, just to say it at the start, we are inherently working closely with the ocean carriers because they are the members of DCSA. So DCSA is an organization formed by 9 of the largest ocean carriers. So we are, let's say, closely working together with subject matter experts within the ocean carriers in order to get the implementations on their side. The question then being, how to get the implementation to work on the ports and terminal side. And we believe the way to do that is that we work in sequence, and we're very open to hearing about other ports and terminals who are interested to take part. But we are working together with the largest container ports and terminals in the world, gradually working on this implementation. So the way that we are doing that is really by direct contact. Once that's in place, those APIs can be used by other participants. So we imagine it being like a rolling ball that starts with the ocean carriers. We work then with the ports and terminals, and then other secondary players can then let's say play a role. Maybe they are providers of services on the land side. Maybe they are organizations that provide another mode of transport, for example. Mm-hmm. Then I guess another question is how to technically provide this. This is, after all, a software developers conference. I think really or software developers live TV, let's say. So the way that we do that is to try to make it very easy for software engineers to implement those standards. That's partly by using REST APIs as a method. That's something that's very readily available from many platforms that are currently out there, either cloud-based or, let's say, traditional software platforms. It's a software technique that is widely known to software engineers. And by making those standards available on Swagger Hub, it's easy, let's say, to find out information about those standards. In addition to that, we also provide ourselves support. So if a particular team, a software implementation team, is having trouble with implementing, then they can get in touch with us, and we're also very happy to provide advice about how to implement. So I think that the way to get this implementation is a step-by-step process. Starts with the ocean carriers, then we extend to ports and terminals, and then we extend to the rest of the ecosystem. That's our viewpoint on how this can work.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's good also to ask Gavin, what do you think about what are the challenges to implement to get this also? And then we come to the next one.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ralf. Yeah, indeed, I do agree with Alan. I think direct contact is one of the ways that we could push for adoption. Probably like what Alan has mentioned, the context with the carriers from MPA's perspective or Singapore's perspective is really working directly with some of the ports, especially the major ports or ports that are physically connected to Singapore, because that will probably be the leverage for us to expand it to digitally connect with them and to exchange information. Of course, besides ports, we are also talking to our local community. In terms of the marine tech companies, we hope that these are excellent use cases for them to increase their business opportunities with their customers, because by doing that, as mentioned in my earlier presentation, they could really improve the efficiency, especially for the ships, and also to reduce the administrative burden of the shipmaster and the agents. This could help to greatly improve their service offering or business offering to the customers. On top of that, I thought that one of the things that we could really push for is also open standards, because by adopting open standards, that is where we could help to push for the greater adoption. Definitely, the challenges is there because it's never easy to really rally the entire global community to come on board this. So we hope that by doing experimentations, proof of concepts, trials, etc., we are able to exhibit the benefits of this interoperability. And in doing so, we hope that we could push for greater adoption. Of course, what we want to do eventually is really to be able to push for this adoption at the International Maritime Organization level, because as a port authority, we do have that lever for us to do that. And hopefully, we could also go right until the International Organization for Standards as well, where we can push for some of these technical standards to be implemented or to be standardized, so that the maritime industry can adopt the same technical standards for all these APIs that we are talking about. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And just coming now to the next question, but I also would like to give also a bit my feedback on this. What I see on speeding up the implementation and the benefits, what I always see is, if you look at GitHub, for example, and you see how many developers are developing some APIs, and you see a lot of forks and a lot of contributions to the channel, and you see that the API is growing and has 15 deployments per half an hour and so on. So you see a lot of traction here. And also, if we look, I see sometimes, if we look to other industries in API developments, in e-commerce, in health, in pharmaceuticals, in automotive, sometimes I see that we can learn also a lot from other industries, how they apply and how they speed up their processes. Also on API development, also to further on extending this, not only REST APIs, but also the different kinds of things, as mentioned, if we talk about APIs, blockchains, messaging services, Kafka, and so on, the different kinds of interoperability to connect to customers, to connect to ports, to connect to the ship systems, to connect to different technologies. So it's really up to get here speed to market, tangible results, and getting forward to that. Next question, I think if we make that again a bit bigger, was to DCSA, Alan. Question: there are many emerging Internet of Things and cloud applications for maritime domain. Is there a global standard in the Internet of Things transmission data format besides port call examples, just as you mentioned?
Well, thanks for that question. At DCSA, we're certainly very interested in the Internet of Things, and it's also an area where we are working together with the ocean carriers and the rest of the community to set standards. Perhaps just to say one thing to start off, the standards around port call, of course, can be fed based on data and information that could be collected using Internet of Things technologies. One can certainly imagine automation around cranes or other equipment that's on the land side, and similarly with some of the equipment that could be on board a vessel as well. However, we don't generally think about the port call process as being an Internet of Things application as such. It's more seen as a general way to automate the business process of port call. But coming back to the question, in terms of standards for data transmission for IoT, so that's a complex multi-level question. what we've been looking at in terms of standardizing Internet of Things within DCSA has been to look at what kind of network protocols and technologies are appropriate to be deployed on container ships, and also the kind of information that can be sent there. So we've made a publication identifying technologies that can be used on container vessels. That identifies, let's say, a number of radio technologies that are possible. So that's, let's say, part of the answer is to look there at what kind of radio technologies, what kind of low-level technologies are appropriate for IoT in this context. Now, IoT is wider than that because one of the key aspects in container shipping is, of course, how to track and how to monitor vessels going forward, not only on the vessel, but also on the land side and in all kinds of contexts where shipping containers can be found. So any standard also has to look at how that's going to work. And then you start looking at areas like, okay, well, how, for example, can 3G and 4G networks be used, or perhaps other kinds of IoT wide area network technology, maybe LoRaWAN, for example. Mm-hmm. So they are technology we have identified. They're going further up the stack, looking at actual applications. Well, so far we've made one publication in that area, which is around reefer containers. So that's, it's clearly one of the most critical areas for IoT technology within the container shipping industry. And there we've identified a wide range of attributes and their values that could be sent. And we've proposed ways of packaging that data into various protocols. So they're the two areas we've looked at so far. We have a whole program running on Internet of Things. It is covering all kinds of areas, both for reef containers and for dry containers. It is focused on smart containers, and it is not focused on other kinds of IoT data that could be found in the maritime or container shipping industry. For example, it does not look at things like data you might get from the engine room or other kinds of IoT data, but it is possible that we could expand that in the future. So that's how we currently stand on IoT.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much, Alan. Edmund, what do you think on these IoT things, and what kind of examples do you see here from your side on the Internet of Things, transmission data, formats beside port calls? What's on your side, on your thoughts on that?
Sure. So to take a step back for Gsbn, when it comes to data standards, as an independent consortium, our view is we are actually pretty neutral. So it's not only for the IoT. I think generally when it comes to other type of structured data standards. At the end, shipping is a global industry. So we look into multiple standards, and we really put, I think, our members at the heart of the whole decisions. So at the end, whether we use certain standard, and we have regular conversation with DCSA and other similar standard organizations. So our view is we put our members at heart, and when we decide to use one standard or over the others, or which standards, we want to have regular communications with our members, and what we believe is for us to make a better decision. I think events like today, where we can openly talk about what are the pros and cons, what are the different standards. I think this is extremely helpful. At Gsbn side, in the future, we will also open up our memberships to extend than just shipping lines and terminals. So what it means is for smaller companies, maybe software company, if they want to consume data from a Gsbn network, you don't have to be some of the largest shipping line. If you are a technology company or other platform, we still provide a way for you to interact with us and also contribute to the data standard discussion at Gsbn.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have still one question in the last one? Next one. what is what is the API adoption rate like? So that's a wonderful question for as a closing thing. So what is the adoption rate like? Starting with Alan and then Gavin and Edmund.
Sure. Well, I mean that's a pretty general question. So let me try to address it from.
But I think Alan, it's a wonderful question because we see
absolutely
it's all driven by adoption rate. Yeah. So if nobody's using that API, then we don't need that. Then we need to build that better one. So therefore, good question.
Absolutely. No, I mean, very happy to take it. So. Let's say as APIs are rolling out throughout the maritime industry, and in our case particularly in the container shipping industry, it's a new thing for this sector in general. In the past, many exchanges were made using EDI, basically using file transfers, or they were just simply not automated. If we look particularly in the case of port call, it's generally speaking been something that was not heavily automated in the past. So how is the API adoption rate going? Well, that's a tricky question in the sense of like, you know, how is it measured and what do we consider to be a good rate? A question that of course DCSA has also thought quite a lot about. And what we have seen so far, let's say, is that the API adoption rate has been at the start, obviously, starting basically from zero. So you can only accelerate from that point forward. What we are finding is that we're really seeing an accelerating exponential curve that is going up. We have a number of APIs that are out there, and the one for port call is currently being used in these pilot programs. Let's say. So yeah. Of course, you see usage there, but that is basically the current status on those APIs. As we bring those pilot programs in and out, then they are, let's say, generally speaking, we're seeing usage that we would expect. The open APIs, for example, the APIs that are out there at the moment for track and trace, there we are seeing some quite large shippers and freight forwarders coming on board who are interested in tracking and tracing their goods. We are seeing that the implementations are there at most of the DCSA members, and we also are seeing that the adoption is gradually increasing. So I think that adoption is a key question for the success of any technology, any technological standard. But what I also think is that this is an industry that cannot hold back the wave of APIs. APIs adoption is something that is a general technology trend. It is not something that is specific to this industry. So it will become inherent that all of the players in this industry will need to use REST APIs because they will need to integrate data from a wide range of sources and be able to do that in new and dynamic ways and be able to aggregate data from different data sources in order to create new applications. And when all of your other data sources are providing data in REST APIs, because that's the current standard way of doing that, it'll be very useful to also have the specific maritime data also available in this format. So I believe that this adoption is accelerating. We see from our own data that it is accelerating. And I believe that the forces that are driving that acceleration are essentially inevitable. The REST APIs already are everywhere in many other industries. They are there in finance. They are there in e-commerce. They are there in government applications. They are there in all major automated systems. And that is the reason why I strongly believe that REST API adoption will continue to accelerate.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Then, Gavin, what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Dr. Ralf. I think I'll answer this question in two parts. Firstly, regarding the Parklands API, which I've briefly introduced just now. I must say it's the adoption. I wouldn't say there's any adoption at this moment because it's still pretty new. We just launched the specifications in November. Essentially, we are encouraging the maritime community to adopt the standards and start developing the API for that and to start connecting with the parties that are also developing similar APIs, right? So within the DigitalOCEANS partnership, we're also getting our partners to start developing the APIs and to conduct trials. From MPA's or Singapore's perspective, we are also talking to other stakeholders like other ports or even some of the carriers to get them to develop this API, and we could start talking to each other soon, right? So hopefully we could gain some traction, towards the end of the year, and of course, the adoption rate will increase. Another part I want to answer with regards to the adoption rate is from the Singapore Maritime Data Hub's perspective, which I introduced towards the end of my presentation. I'm not too sure whether the participants caught hold of the data that I presented. Since 2019, we have around 50 million API calls to date, and more than 200 over developers that are onboarded the Maritime Data Hub. Whether or not this is successful, I must say we are pretty successful, but whether we are satisfied, of course not, because we see that there's potential for improvement, potential for more developers to come on board. So definitely in this aspect, we are going to push for more APIs to be developed. We are also increasingly connecting adjacently with other platforms, for example, SG TradeX, or even between our local government agencies to share our vessel-related data with them. So with that, I hope the community over here can also start looking at our data and also start connecting with us. And together we can actually push for the adoption to improve along the way. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and last but not least, Edmund, what are your thoughts on the API adoption rate?
Thank you, Dr. Ralf. In short, Gsbn, the API adoption rate is great. To share a bit background, typically when we see our APIs, there's very often compared to legacy EDI integrations. And as we mentioned, earlier at Gsbn, when we design our APIs, we have different key features. We have encryption, so only related parties can see the data. We are also writing the transaction hashes on the blockchain, so all the parties involved, they can verify those transactions. We are building on top of multiple cloud technologies, so that allow easy versionings. We consider multiple standards, including DCSA and all others. So when we look in all these newer benefits on modern API versus EDIs, I think we have very good feedback. But also to end this, we believe this is just our humble start. There's still many work for us as a community to do, and they drive the industry forward. So back to you, Dr. Ralf.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So I would suggest now we wrap it up. The session was a great session and talking with you about API and interoperability. I think also if we have further questions, then reach out to us, to this group, asking questions also what we see about what are the preferred API frameworks, how to connect this, how to use this on an encryption security level on different kinds of platforms, for all the sake of being good connected and creating value for our customers. So I would like to say thank you very much to Alan, Edmund, and Gavin, and for our hosts here having us. It was a great session and a pleasure with you together. Thank you very much. Looking forward also to the next session of the deep diving into IoT projects and ROI. We talked briefly about Internet of Things and connectivity here on that side. So it's a pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you very much. And I will hand over to the host. So thank you so much for this great session.
Thank you.